And we're just, does anyone know any arrangements or whether Bruce Jaffe's not expecting to be here?
I have not heard anything from him saying he wasn't, but I know he was recently, I believe, almost out of the country in some islands.
He was supposed to be back. He's supposed to be back, but I did text him this afternoon and got no answer.
Okay.
Or called him. I called him on the phone and he didn't answer.
So maybe on one of those flying things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, welcome everyone to the August 16th meeting of Soquel Creek Water District. Once again, coming to you over the internet. And so tonight we're going to have a closed session for approximately 15 minutes, coming back to open session at 6:20. Right now, we're going to do the roll call.
Director Daniels.
I'm here.
Vice President Christensen.
Here.
Director Jaffe is absent. Director Lather.
Here.
And President LaHue.
Here. Is there any, I'm looking to see if anyone has any wish to speak on the closed session items. I don't see any attendees nor hands up. So we will then proceed to closed session and be back here at 6:20.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome again. Welcome back. We just came out of closed session. There were no reportable items. So we will move into the public hearing. And this is going to be led by Nate Gillespie, our operations and maintenance manager.
Yeah, thank you, President LaHue. This is the 2021 Public Health Goal Report. So prior to beginning my brief overview presentation I'm going to do on the Public Health Goal Report, I'd just like to state that water delivered to customers of Soquel Creek Water District meets and exceeds all established regulatory health standards set by the US EPA and State Water Resources Control Board. Soquel Creek Water District employs a staff of dedicated state-certified water professionals with the #1 goal of providing safe drinking water to all of its customers. Greg Wilson, our water quality program coordinator, is one of those dedicated staff members who assisted with the preparation of this report. He's also present here at this meeting. So the Public Health Goal Report is a report that's unique to the state of California. It's required every 3 years for systems over 10,000 service connections. This report summarizes any water quality constituents detected above the public health goal or maximum contaminant level goal, which is the federal equivalent to the state public health goal. No formal guidance is provided by our regulatory agency regarding the compilation of this report. However, the Association of California Water Agencies produces a guidance document that staff utilized in preparation of this report. All right, so public health goals. What is a public health goal? It's the level of a contaminant in drinking water below where there is no known or expected health risk. These public health goals are developed by the California EPA's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. Public health goals are non-enforceable and they're based solely on public health risk considerations. No water systems are required to meet public health goals. Public health goals are established without consideration of analytical detection capability, treatment technology available, and the benefits and costs associated with treatment. These aspects are considered during the establishment of MCLs, which are the regulatory drinking water standards. So for this report, water quality data considered was all water quality data delivered to customers from the 2019 to 2021 calendar years. Not included in this report was water quality data from standby sources that were not put online during this time period. This water quality data has previously been summarized in the annual consumer confidence reports for each respective year. These consumer confidence reports were electronically delivered to customers for each of their respective years. So a table summarizing the detections above the public health goals is found on page 3 of this report. Copper and 4 individual trihalomethanes were detected above their respective public health goals. So copper data considered was from first draw customer collected lead and copper samples that were collected in 2019 from a pool of 33 customer taps. Copper was not detected in Soquel Creek source water, so the source of copper in these samples is leaching from customers' internal plumbing. Copper was detected above the public health goal, but was below the regulatory action level. Individual trihalomethanes were also detected above their respective public health goals. Trihalomethanes are a group of 4 chemicals. They are chloroform, bromoform, bromodichloromethane, and dibromochloromethane. Trihalomethanes are formed when chlorine or other disinfectants, which are used to control microbial contamination in drinking water, react with natural organic matter, which occurs naturally in source water. So the table on page 3, as well as the table on page 5, summarizes the detections of the individual trihalomethanes compared to their respective public health goals. Trihalomethanes are regulated under the stage 2 disinfection byproducts rule, which established the total trihalomethanes, so the sum of all these individual trihalomethanes, an MCL of 80 micrograms per liter based on a locational running annual average. So in February of 2020, the California EPA Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment established public health goals for trihalomethanes. So this is the first time that trihalomethanes have been included in a public health goal report. So in addition to these 5 detections, there were 2 constituents that were detected above their respective public health goals in some single samples. But since the average of the detections was non-detect, it's not required to include these constituents in this report. However, they're added for informational purposes. These constituents were radium-228 and arsenic. So radium-228 was detected in only 1 sample during the 2019 to 2021 monitoring period, and that was just slightly above the detection limit for reporting. Arsenic, the district treats 2 of its wells for arsenic, and so the range of detection at these treatment facilities was non-detect to 3.4 micrograms per liter, but again, the average was non-detect, and these detections are included for informational purposes only. So recommendations, as stated at the beginning of this presentation, water supplied to the customers of the Soquel Creek Water District meets all state and federal drinking water standards set to protect public health. To further reduce levels of constituents identified in this report would be costly and may have limited benefits. So initiation of treatment is not recommended at this time. And that concludes my overview of the 2021 Public Health Goal Report, and I will turn it back to President LeHue.
President LeHue, you're on mute.
Good, Tom.
Sorry, I'm looking for raised hands. Any public comment on this item? Emma, you can double check me, but I don't see any.
I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, so then we'll go through our board members. So if they have questions or comments, so Rochelle, anything?
My question was if the copper limit was exceeded to the point where we had to do something and it was on somebody's property and not in our system, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so in the lead and copper samples, the regulatory determination is based on the 90th percentile level of copper. So that's related to the corrosivity of the water. So that if we exceeded the 90th percentile action level for copper, which is 1.3 milligrams per liter, the district would be required to undergo a corrosion control study and implement corrosion control.
Okay, I was just curious.
Good question. Okay, Bruce?
Yes, I have a number of questions or comments, I guess. I see here copper was not detected in any district source water sample, as kind of one would expect. But I think this is, the next sentence here is a little misleading. It says, based on sampling of the district's distribution system. And I would think, most think the district's distribution would be the district's well system. And that should be non-detect as well, because do we have any copper in our system at all? I don't imagine. So that should be non-detect as well. So the only detections are not in our system, they're in customer systems. And I think we should be clear about that, because it makes it sound like, we've been putting together a bad system that has this copper, contaminants in it, and that is not true. It's all in customer systems, not in our distribution system. So I think we should be clear about that, because I think that's an important distinction.
Director Daniels, can you call exactly where that's in the report, or Nate, do you know? I want to make sure.
That's item 6.1. It's on page 10.
Okay, thank you.
It's in the third paragraph where that's just talked about. It says copper was not detected in any district source water sample collected from 2019 through 2021 at or above the ... And then it says based on sampling of the district's distribution system in 2019, the 90th percentile value for copper was, and again, I think that's not true, because our system, the value probably was 0, just like in source water.
I think Nate was making the point that it has to do with corrosivity, but maybe be clear that was probably at the tap, at customers.
At customer taps.
Yeah.
So this is things that occurred in their systems, not in the district system. Because it would make, I think it's be clear that, we've done everything for our system, for, the system that the district owns and operates. We've done everything possible there, because it's literally non-detect. So I think that's important to be clear about. Okay. The next section is, the trihalomethanes really bother me, and they have in the past too. As you see at the top of page 11, total trihalomethanes, the range of detections was 5 to 77, and of course the value there, the maximum contaminant level is 80. Now, to tell you how close that is, if that value was 4% higher, we would have a maximum contaminant level violation. So we're that close to violating that maximum contaminant level. We have a 77 value, and an 80 is over the top. And so I think we need to work on that. We can't just slough it away and say, well, we didn't violate it, because we're so close. And there are a number of things we've tried in the past. We should go back to them and try them again. Like taking the water out of the tanks and recycling it from time to time, bubbling air through them to get some of the organics out. All kinds of things can be done with that, and we should do a little of those things just to make sure that we have enough buffer on top so that we don't accidentally violate the MCL, because that would look pretty shameful. Let's see, what else? I think the other thing is, it's mentioned in here that when we were taking water from the city of Santa Cruz, which has lots of organics, and it's chlorine and organics that produces a lot of these trihalomethanes. And so I think we should be very, very careful. It's really, I think, a good thing we have this drought going now, because the city hasn't been dumping their highly, organic filled water into our tanks and systems. So, because we could well be over the top now if that was still going on. And we should be very, very careful before we ever start doing that again. In fact, I think we should tell the city, show them how close we were to violating the MCL, and that, you know, in the future, we need to be more careful, and they need to be more careful. Maybe things need to be done on their side to, you know, filter organics out or something, because I think that really worries me. I was wondering about chromium. It's mentioned in here, you know, since the MCL and so forth was withdrawn. Where would we sit if they hadn't been withdrawn? Would we have violated those, and maybe, you know, what we're planning would make that okay? Because I'd like to know more about that. Okay, let's see, what else do I have? That's it. Thank you.
Carla?
Well, I wanted to go back. I think Dr. Daniels reflected my concern about the THMs, but I want to go back to the copper, because if copper wasn't in the source, did the district inadvertently contribute to that carbon reading through its pH of the water that we deliver to the houses? I was just curious about if it's due to corrosion, did our water contribute to that? Because that's an issue in a lot of older homes. If the pH of the water is not, is not neutral enough. Historically, and we know egregious examples of that, like at Flint, Michigan, when they were delivering corrosive water to houses and getting lead in return. Do you have anything to say about that, Nate?
Yeah, so the lead and copper studies, they are, they're the only sampling event where the customer is required to collect the sample. And there's certain criteria that the sample has to meet in order to be accepted. So the sample needs to be collected as a first draw sample. So we're collecting essentially the first liter of water that comes out of the customer's tap after the customer's water has sat stagnant throughout the entire household for a minimum of 6 hours. So these samples are also required to be done in the summer months. So when the temperatures are the highest and the reaction rates are the fastest, and water has sat for a minimum of 6 hours, and the water is collected, the first liter of water out of the customer's tap is collected. That's how we get our lead and copper samples. So they're designed to kind of catch the worst case scenario as far as corrosivity of the water goes. So we have a large sampling pool of, we're required to collect at least 30 of these samples. So if we were not meeting the action level for lead or copper, then we would need to be implementing corrosion control, which would be essentially making water less aggressive, less likely to leach lead and copper from customers' lines. But we are meeting those 90th percentile action levels. So that's kind of seen as having optimized corrosion control in the state's eyes.
Okay. Well, thanks. And yeah, and I well, thank you very much. I was concerned about, well, because I've never tested for copper at my house, so it's not a widespread district thing. So I knew that, but it is a concerning reading. The other thing is the THMs. It's just a general comment that, yeah, we do want to probably, before we would accept a full transfer agreement with Santa Cruz, if that were ever to happen, we would want to do a resting time study, I guess, to see whether that would affect the THM levels in our water. So, okay, that's all I have.
So I was just wanted to hear from staff just on, I know we had the bubblers in the tank and I know the organic matter content, but is there anything else we can do, or any ideas for how to keep those, with a little more margin for error and keep them lower?
Yeah, just maintaining tank storage, we could draw down the tanks a little bit further to create less of a water age in tanks.
Mhm.
This is kind of it's a balance of maintaining enough water just in case of a fire, maintaining appropriate levels for fire flow versus, managing water age. Yeah, that's another thing we could be looking at to mitigate these THM levels. Also, I just want to point out in the report the range of detection. Typical values that we see are closer to the average, not towards the higher end of the range of detection. And the higher range of detection, those samples were collected during the time of the pilot water transfer with the city of Santa Cruz. And I know the city of Santa Cruz, they are undergoing a upgrade at the Graham Hill Treatment Facility to essentially put the point of chlorine injection further down their treatment train. And that is to mitigate DBP formation. So I know the city is actively pursuing that, but I agree, it could potentially be a long residence time if we were, accepting water from city of Santa Cruz.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Nate. And I think we are open for any motions.
I move we approve.
I'll second.
And we did open the public hearing and ask for public comment, just so you know. And so that public hearing is now closed. We need a motion to close the public hearing too.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. So we've got all the motion to close the public hearing and accept the public health report.
Yes.
Roll call.
2 and 4. Okay.
Director Daniels.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes on both.
Vice President Christensen.
Yes on number 2 and number 4.
Director Jaffe is absent. Director Lather.
Yes on item 2 and item 4 of the actions.
And President LaHue.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Nate. We will move forward. So the next item is going to be the consent agenda. So is there any board member, do any board members wish to remove any items from consent? Bruce.
4.17 or 17.
Okay. And anyone else? Okay, then we can have a motion for the rest of them.
I'll move to approve the consent items except for 4.17.
President LaHue, did we ask for public comment?
Oh, sorry, you're right. No, you're right.
Sorry.
Sorry, I forgot we do it at the beginning of the whole consent agenda. So yeah, any public comment on the consent agenda? Looking for hands. Not seeing any, and there were no people that asked ahead of time to speak, but that's fine. Still anyone can speak by raising their hand. Okay, so no, I don't see that. And then so thanks for reminding me. And so there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, all except for 4.17. Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, I missed who second.
I did as well. But
I made the motion. I know that.
I'll second the one except for 4.17.
I think it was, yeah, it was Rachel, Rochelle, and Carla.
Thank you. So roll call, Director Daniels.
Yes.
Vice President Christensen.
Yes.
Director Jaffe is absent. Director Lather.
Yes.
And President LaHue.
Yes. And so 4.17 will be taken after the other administrative business. Now we'll go to oral and written communications. So this is where anyone has the opportunity to speak on an item that's not on tonight's agenda. So are there any public comments here? Looking for raised hands. And Emma's looking, and probably Becca's looking too. I see none. Okay, any board member comments in this oral and written communication option? Bruce Daniels.
Yes, I've been talking to various neighbors and so forth about, the Pure Water project we're doing. And, it's going to supply us with all this new water. And of course, the question that comes up is that, okay, we're getting all this new water. So what does that do to things like our water demand offset program? And what about our restrictions on, using the hose and so forth and so on? And so I just wanted to point out that there are lots of questions like this that we're going to need to address. What happens when Pure Water comes online? Well, what does it do to all the other things that we've set in place? Which ones are still there? Which ones do we change? Which ones might we get rid of? All those kinds of things. And as well, people start talking about, well, what happens to our rates? And so that's another thing for the rate study. So it's just a point that we're soon going to need to answer a lot of questions, and it's hard to just kind of keep going down the road when this big thing has happened.
Well, and I think, to be fair, even once it happens, it's going to be a while before the basin sees the beneficial effect. It's not going to be immediate, but yeah, we do need to plan for that. We're waiting for basin recovery, right?
Well, in particular, when people start asking the questions, we can't just say, well, we haven't thought about that yet. In a couple of years, we'll get back to you on it. We need to at least have a process, if not have some initial directions as to what we're doing with things.
Ron has something, yes?
Yeah, I'll just say those are great comments, Dr. Daniels, and we are thinking about that. For example, we have a meeting of mini staff tomorrow regarding the WDO program, how it may end as Pure Water comes on and other things such as that. So it is in our site. It's even written, I think, documented in some of the documents that are online here today as far as action item the board likes us to keep an eye on. So please keep bringing them up. We haven't heard all those, but some of them we are, we're looking toward the future and trying to position, or at least, do the right things to when that time comes. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else on items not on tonight's agenda? Okay, then next would be District Council oral report.
Thanks, President LaHue. Just a reminder that the legislature needs to adopt any bills that are going to move forward by the end of this month, and then the governor has a month to sign them. So we continue to monitor AB 2449, which is the bill that we mentioned at our July meeting, which would allow directors to attend meetings from a private location without making that location publicly part of the agenda. I think, unfortunately, and as we discussed at that press meeting, AB 2449 has been amended in a number of ways that make it much less practically helpful for directors. I know there's been some efforts to try to get some last-minute amendments to that bill, so it'll be important for us to keep watching that. And then once we do have a final word from the legislature, we'll make sure to update the board. Importantly, that even if we don't get a legislative fix this cycle, AB 361 will remain in effect through the end of next calendar year, as long as the statewide declaration of emergency isn't rescinded by the governor. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Josh? Stay tuned on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Josh. And then we go to administrative business, and then there are no will serves. So item 7.2 is an item that I think Shelley is going to present and has been working on, I don't know how long now, but a huge amount of work, Shelley and Alyssa. So I will let you take it away.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this one tonight. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are bringing you the draft of Ordinance 2203, which repeals and replaces Ordinance 1701, which is a really far-reaching district ordinance that broadly addresses the rules and regulations of water service in the district. And it is covers topics in finance and billing, engineering, O&M, and conservation customer service field. So it was a collaborative effort to get this, this draft ordinance to you. And we also consulted with legal counsel multiple times along the way. And our goal with this new ordinance was to clean up sections that weren't applicable anymore, clarify language, incorporate existing practices that into writing that weren't in an ordinance before, and organize the sections to be easier to locate information. And our hope is that these changes will help customers and staff to be clear on district rules. One thing that you might notice is that the total number of sections decreased from 29 in 1701 to 16 in 2203, but it doesn't reflect a huge change, a huge decrease in content. A lot of sections were moved to be subsections to better group content. We changed section headings to be more inclusive of those. So the memo lists the major changes to the sections, and sections that didn't get changed aren't shown. And I'm not going to go through the changes in a lot of detail at this time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about anything specifically. And hopefully Leslie, Taj, Shelley may be able to jump in and address anything specific to their department that I'm not able to. And we have a couple of options for motions tonight. The first is to adopt the ordinance as is without any changes. The second is to adopt it with changes you specified tonight. And the third is to bring the ordinance back for adoption at a future meeting. We understand that it's a lot to look at, and you may have questions that we need to address, or you simply may want a second look. So we include that as an option as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alyssa. And once again, thanks for all your work. So any public comment on this item? I do not see any hands raised. Okay. All right, we can start with Rochelle. Any comments or corrections or changes you'd suggest?
Sorry, I muted myself. I have none.
Okay, no problem. Bruce?
Well, I tried swallowing this giant pumpkin, and it was quite some it took. But I didn't really. It looks good to me. Most of it's kind of language we've already had, and we've organized it better, which is good. Rephrased a few things, which seem to have the same kinds of intent, just a little clearer. So I didn't really find anything startling new, and so I guess I just don't have any issues with what's been proposed.
Okay. Carla?
I third that. I just wanted to compliment them. I noticed right away that there were fewer lines and fewer items on the attachment, and so my compliments for doing a thorough reorganization of the whole thing. I noticed that right away, but I didn't see any actual change of policy or apparent change of policy. So I respect what it is, and I'm willing to vote on it.
Okay, thanks. Just one quick little thing. I don't know if it's the same in the actual resolution as is in the memo, but on page 3 of the memo under maintenance, about next to last bullet under maintenance, there's just like a little, it's a typo. It's a small typo where it says at all time. It should be at all times. Okay. Okay. That's all. Sorry, I was trying to read everything. And I don't know if that.
We have to reject it then if it's the.
Yeah. Throughout all time. Yeah. Anyway, you know.
This is a tough crowd.
I know. Sorry.
I can't make sense of it with that error in there.
No, but thank you. As I've said, you know, really thank you for all this work. I think it's a great job. And I'd love to entertain a motion if anybody has that in mind, which you can choose your motion.
Well, I think we just should approve it as is. That's my motion.
That would be number 1.
That's number 1.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
All right. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Daniels.
Well, even though the errors, I approve.
Vice President Christensen. Vice President Christensen.
I approve. I approve.
Director Jaffe is absent. Director Lather.
Yes.
And President LaHue.
Yes. Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 7.3. This is the response to the Santa Cruz County Civil Grand Jury report.
Right, and I'll take this.
Ron, you're gonna take off with this? Okay, good deal.
Yeah, President LaHue, I'll have this, but I would like to just, again, extend the thanks that you did to Alyssa and Shelley. That is our district backbone, most comprehensive ordinance. And it's an art to do those things and to do them right. And not only that, it intertwined throughout all the departments. So having to corral those cats, it's quite a chore. So again, thank you sincerely, because it's a tough task. So item 7.3, this is for the board to approve the draft responses to the Santa Cruz County Civil Grand Jury report titled "Our Water Account is Overdrawn, Beyond Conservation, Achieving Drought Resilience." Remember, we brought this to you in June when it first was published. And the grand jury, you know, periodically looks at different situations throughout the county, trying to make government better. And you know, I think about 7 or 8 years ago, they looked at water, and now the cycle's come back around. What the report said in the essence was, we have a huge problem. We've got to act now, and collaboration is the way to do it. Now, their method of collaboration was bigger government is better. And I think that's where we might have kind of had a difference of opinion. But stepping back again, the responses that are in front of you tonight, I went online and looked at all the other responses from the city of Santa Cruz, the MGAs that are now published, the Santa Margarita Basin, and a couple others that are out there. And we're very similar. We did talk about them as staff, but more specifically in the findings and the recommendations, they line up. So I think throughout the county, the ones that had to respond were kind of in lockstep. And that's one of the essence of their report, was be in lockstep, work together. So I think that's good to know. Mm-hmm. So the responses are there for you. Like I said, we worked with the ad hoc committee that was appointed, and there's 3 motions. I'll be glad to answer any questions too. And the motions are there in front of you on the screen. So I'll stop there in case for.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Any public comment? Seeing none. Emma, I don't think you see any either.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Then well, I'll go through the board members. Rochelle?
Yeah. Am I on?
Yeah.
I'm always muting myself.
Showtime.
I was fine with the responses. I didn't have anything to add to it.
Okay. Bruce?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about F2 in particular. That's labeled as agree. And if I read the first sentence, it starts off with, while water storage opportunities may traditionally be thought of as above ground tanks and reservoirs, the groundwater basin in our local region has storage capacity to provide a drought resilient freshwater supply that can protect against further seawater contamination and seawater intrusion. That doesn't sound like agree. That sounds like partially disagree. And particularly this county-wide drought-resilient water storage and delivery infrastructure. That's not something I think our district needs. I don't know that many of the other groundwater agencies, which is all but the city, needs. And by saying agree, I think we're sort of saying, okay, we're implicitly will contribute to the effort, money, etc. And I don't think we want to be on that basis that you know, clearly we need to spend a lot of money and do a lot of stuff because this is desperately needed. I think the city clearly needs some stuff and we're willing to help, but to put ourselves in the place of agreeing that this county-wide system is important and needed, I think that's wrong. So I think we can just leave the language as is, but just change the X from agree to partly disagree. I propose that. Okay. I had some other things which I'll go through. 4. Oh yeah, on F10. At the bottom of that language, it mentions, let me just read the sentence to you, and there's a word missing, I think. We would be remiss not to recognize and appreciate all the funding from Pure Water SoCal project, including a $50 million grant and approximately $25 million local interest loan from the State Water System Control Board, $9 million grant from the Federal Bureau of Reclamation, and an $88 million from the Federal Environment Protection Agency. The word loan is missing there. So it kind of sounds like we're getting $88 million in cash from the federal government, and that's not true. So I think we need to put in, you know, the word loan at the very least. I'd use the same language you used for the 25 million, say low interest loan.
Low interest loan, yes.
Yes. So it's clear that we're only getting the small amount from the Federal Bureau, and most of it's a loan. So that would clarify, in my mind, exactly what's going on rather than confusing people.
Good point. Thank you. That's.
Anything else, Bruce?
I think that was all I had.
Yeah. Okay. Ron, do you want to, before I go on to anybody else, do you want to talk about F2?
I think that's not a bad suggestion. I was looking at Santa Cruz's today. They proposed them at their last meeting, and I think they actually did the same. They marked it as disagree or partial disagree. It's your. I think that's a good modification. Obviously this is the board document. And
well, and I mean, I would add also, though, somewhere in there, like, because I agree with Bruce that you start out with something that sounds like you're, not necessarily agreeing, but at the very end, the last sentence sounds like it is agreeing.
Maybe we take off that last part.
Well, that last part, because we're already working on solutions, so it makes it sound like we aren't. That last sentence. I mean, that's what we're working on with Pure Water SoCal and being able to store water in the groundwater basin. So I think, I guess I wouldn't be so agreeable either.
So
I think we need to make the point that, they have they're significantly impacted in Santa Cruz with drought conditions. And while we agree there is a need for water storage, we're working on, we're in the middle of addressing that problem. Bruce?
Might I suggest that we keep the last sentence, but just strike out countywide solutions? I think that's the difficult thing is, their solutions are needed, certainly by the city, maybe by other water districts, but countywide, that's the one I really disagree with, because that would apply to our district, and that's not true for us.
But that's the thing. I mean, I think it also needs to be put in there that we are addressing that. It's somewhere in there.
Okay.
So
we got to come up with language because it needs to be in on Monday, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can leave it at partially disagree, I think, and then let's see.
President Hugh, could I
yes.
recommend some language?
Yes.
What if, agreeing with Director Daniels' deletion of countywide in the last sentence at the end after delivery infrastructure, we just say comma, which include the Pure Water SoCal project?
Sure.
And so, Emma, let's make sure we catch that. And I will say the city hit partial disagree, and just for context, they had different reasons. They feel like they're doing a lot, so maybe it's not as urgent. So we'll.
I think Josh's suggestion with and Bruce's, and then I think it's not much different. I think you got it, Ron.
Actually, no, I was looking at my other screen. Emma, did you catch that? I just want to make sure we got it, or we'll work with Josh.
Yeah, I have notes for that.
Okay, great. And I want to be clear on this. So we're going to hit partial disagree, and we're going to do Josh's solution and then take out countywide part, right? Is that right? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following. And then, of course, F10, we're going to insert loan part, low interest loan, which
yes, that's easy.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, and Carla.
I missed him getting the part at the end of infrastructure saying which includes pure water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Carla, do you have comments on the whole thing?
Well, I think the F2 was supposed to be partially disagree. I think that might have been because an explanation isn't provided if you agree with their statement. So I'm just saying it's not, and I think the corrections sound fine for that. That's a good idea. I don't think we can speak for the city of Santa Cruz and what their perceptions of their drought conditions are at this point.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if y'all know, but last month's City Water Commission meeting, they had a new report on climate change put together by the University of Massachusetts, I believe. And supposedly it was very harrowing. So it really put doubt in a lot of their minds as to, their, aquifer storage and retrieval thing, whether that'll ever work. Because if you don't have excess winter water, then storing it is kind of a no-up. And that's a sad situation.
And they delivered a presentation, Water Department did at City Council today, kind of summarizing that and where they're looking. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in general, I think you did a good job responding, and I think if you have a chance to read the MGAs, it'll be on the meeting on Thursday night. They did a good job with that too. I think overall, I feel like the grand jury is trying to help, but I think they kind of got off on not realizing that we have been working on making a resilient water supply. So I think maybe this will help. All these responses will help them, help clarify that for them.
And if I may, Dr. LaHue, you know, if you read the report, it actually gives us accommodations, right? Soquel Creek for its collaboration with the city and the work that it's done. This is, as pointed out, is kind of focused on solving the drought issue relative if you're relying on surface water supplies. And so the city of Santa Cruz situation. So
yes.
I think that's important to note. Thank you. And thank you for the ad hoc committee for your support and your help.
Yes.
And also Melanie Schumacher pitched in and read the document at some phase to help with the answers too. So I want to note that. Thank you.
All right. So any motions?
I'll move to approve
With that?
with the modifications. With
Okay. Yeah. And here's a second.
Yeah.
Michelle.
Okay.
And,
right.
and for clarification, that would be motion number 2 with the modifications, and then direct us to go ahead and send it off to the grand jury and the judge.
Yeah, with the corrections on F2 and F10.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, roll call then.
Director Daniels,
Oh, yes.
Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe is absent, Director Lather,
Yes.
and President LaHue.
Yes. So thank you for the work on that. And we will go to item 4.17, which was pulled from the consent agenda.
Right, and I believe Melanie's gonna kick us off on this one.
Sure. Good evening, board. I'd like to just ask, does Director Daniels want me to tee up a quick summary, or would you just like me to be available for questions?
Well, let me tell you my concern, and that might help you tee up. This is the first I've seen this, so I'm a little surprised. I didn't know this was coming down the pipe. I know that some of the money we're getting from, I think, the state board is going to be used for this, and I'm wondering, you know, what's in it for us, kind of, and why are we part of this? Because it looks like, again, it's for the city's problems and helping them get things up. So I just want to see some background of, you know, what's it, how did it come about, and why are we part of it, and what do we hope to gain out of it?
Sure. I would love to be able to spend a couple minutes on the background of it. So kind of following what you guys were just talking about in regards to, you know, water sustainability in our region. And this is part of that effort. And so, you know, 21 basins in California are critically overdrafted, and DWR has let $7.6 million grants out to those critically overdrafted groundwater basins to further their efforts towards this state mandate of basin sustainability. And of that $7.6 million that we received, there is a component to that, as you can see here, for furthering our efforts within our groundwater sustainability plan. So of the $7.6 million, about $1.9 million has been identified to conduct some studies to further evaluate Group 1 and Group 2 projects within the groundwater sustainability plan. The GSP identifies certain projects, programs, and activities to meet our basin sustainability goals. And of that is looking at if projects don't meet our thresholds or the 1 year and 5 year increments, the state is mandating that our GSA further develop more projects. And so with that, Dr. Daniels, we're looking at projects within Group 1 and Group 2, and specifically of those Group 2 projects, we're looking at the projects that have been identified. So that includes ASR, water transfers, Pure Water Soquel. And of that, I think I want to address your first point, which is, you know, is what's in it for us, or what's in it for the city, or what's in it for the basin. This is a grant specifically given by DWR for the basin. So there is a high priority on meeting the objectives of groundwater and groundwater basin sustainability. In addition, we realize though that the projects within those groups have multiple agencies that are leading those efforts and multiple objectives. And up until this point, a lot of the projects are being evaluated for specific goals and objectives. So Pure Water SoCal, when we developed that, it really was about mid-county sustainability. The district was looking at what share of the basin we were contributing to overdraft, what share of the basin needed to be replenished. And we also recognize that there could be potential for expansion of the project, either for the district's needs, for the basin as a whole need, or for others that could potentially utilize recycled water in the future. ASR, when the city developed ASR, as you know, when the district and the city of Santa Cruz parted ways with the joint desalination project, they went through their own individual WASAC process. We went through our community water plan process. And a lot of times when they're looking at their solutions, it is about their drought needs. A lot of the objectives for Pure Water SoCal at the size that we have it right now was for the groundwater basin sustainability. So this study is to look at furthering and optimizing the projects that are within the basin. As we're looking at regional solutions, this is an opportunity for us to use this grant money to look at that. We're still maintaining the objective of the groundwater basin as a priority because this is funded by DWR, but it's also, I think, looking at other projects. There's no point in our customers and other customers in our county to spend, enormous amounts of money on projects if we can look at optimizing them for ratepayer benefit, for our customers' benefit, for the environmental benefit. So this is, primarily the driver for this. I'll stop there and I can answer more questions.
So can I add two things to complement Melanie's presentation, Dr. Legoux?
Yeah, and I wanted to add something too.
Oh, I'll stop. You go first.
No, you go.
Okay. I think Melanie nailed it. I mean, the presentation that was given tonight by Rosemary Menard, the Director of Water, to the City Council, the special presentation, showed that their ASR only fills 44% of their gap that they need. And through whatever analysis, and one of the thoughts is maximizing pure water, because we know that it has the potential to expand if another EIR was done and the proper studies. It has the potential. I'm not saying it would. That if that does help our community, it also helps our ratepayers due to economy of scale. So that's part of the thought. And just to be real clear about it, so I wanted to add that two parts: the update of what Santa Cruz painted tonight about their shortfall and how it relates to this study.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that, really nailing down how to best optimize the system and continue to do, updated, modeling, and we need to do that for our part of the basin. But I think since this is money coming through the MGA, for the sustainability of the basin, I think that it makes sense to be, having this kind of all-encompassing work to say, okay, how do we best, where do we put the water best? How much can we put where? And so we're using it efficiently. So, let's see. So Bruce, any other comments, questions now that?
Well, one question I'd have, I know that back when the city did studies with their own climate change model and groundwater model or system model, and then they did use the same climate model that the basin uses, and yet this new one, I think, is even more rigorous and scarier than that one was. So I guess one of my questions is, are they going to use which of those models are they going to use? Because they could come out, smelling like a rose, though probably not true, or they could use the harder ones and come out, showing that, because indeed, using the same model that Purewater uses, it showed that their contribution was a contribution, but it was relatively small. In particular, it alone could not solve the basin's overdraft problem. Purewater did, and it was assisted a little bit by their project. And with this new thing, they may not be able to do anything at all. So I think, getting that clear of, where they stand on this is important, because, if it doesn't help at all, and it sounds like with this 40% shortfall, maybe they won't be able to contribute to the basin's benefit. So one has to ask, what's going on here, and what's the contribution to the basin.
Okay, well, maybe we'll go on. Let's see. So that's Michelle, Bruce, Chris, and then Carla.
Yeah, I don't actually have any specific questions about that. I was interested to see that. I was glad to be informed of how the grant was broken down, and that had been agreed on. And so I'm interested to see what the developments are. I was kind of curious. I was actually more surprised about component 2, aquifer storage and recovery. I wasn't sure that. I thought they had sort of thought that was not going to work. So this is new information for me. So.
Okay. The only thing I had questions about was just, I didn't see in the RFP that there was any mention of presentations to the board. Maybe that's implied, but I think as they go along, as you know, we like to be informed and understand what they're learning. So do you know about that, Melanie?
Yes, so the RFP, once we do a selection, we'll go ahead then and work with that selected firm to develop a more itemized scope of work, including deliverables. So we definitely can include some meetings and presentations from that.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's just I think we all like to feel like we understand what's going on. So
I agree with Tom.
Yeah,
keep you up.
And of course, I always like lots of graphics, maps, and
a lot of acronyms that no one understands, right?
Yeah, no. Okay, well, so we had an opportunity for public comment. We had everybody get a chance to ask questions. I think the motion would be whether to authorize release of this RFP. So, any motions?
I'll move.
Okay. Any seconds?
Oh, I'll second.
Okay. All right. There you go. Roll call, please. Roll call, please.
I was moving on to something else for a second.
Yeah, don't move too fast. Okay. So
roll call. Director Daniels.
Weak yes.
Vice President Christensen.
Yes.
Director
the devil's in the details, so we'll see what happens.
Director Jaffe is absent. Director Lather.
Yes.
And President LaHue.
Yes. And just to keep us posted on the progress.
Yeah, and President LaHue, I'll note that this work is 100% grant funded.
Right.
Not a match like a lot of grant funding.
That's great. Okay. So by my calculation, we're on number 8.
I move 8.
Okay. So when will we next see y'all? Let's see.
2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It falls right. September
6th.
September 6th.
Yes.
Okay. See you then.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.